going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Foreign Insight. In this episode, we'll be delving into COVID 1 year later. There's been this week marks 1 year since the COVID-19 shutdown, in which many countries decided to quarantine their cities, quarantine their facilities, their countries, and things of that nature. And so we'll just look at what has happened, how life and how circumstances have changed for many people. Some people have been fortunate, some people have not been so fortunate to be able to navigate throughout the whole COVID pandemic. For many people, I think all of humanity, really, this is the first time a lot of people had gone through a pandemic in which they had to have their lives, they know it, altered quite drastically. You're having to stay home with your families and, really having to fend for yourself and really draw back to your survival instincts, having to manage and maneuver your way around this virus that really was unpredictable and, was kind of having more information gained about it as, I was kind of on the fly, just to say the least. And so, where we'll start off is just, I remember just reflecting back from that week. I still remember it vividly. It was right after my birthday, and I had been going out and celebrating with my friends, and literally right after that weekend, everything was shut down that week. Like literally, it was like you go from going clubbing and going to bars and everything, living your regular life, going to the gym, and then it was just like in one fell swoop, in one moment, all the activities that you really were able to take for granted. For most of your life, were taken away from you suddenly, and you're not having to stay home. For me, the toughest thing was not having the gym available to you because all the gyms were shut down. And so not having to figure out, okay, how am I going to exercise? How am I going to stay in shape? How am I going to keep my mind healthy, without the gym as a resource, or as a accessible. And one thing I still regret, and I still was annoyed that I didn't do, was to at least get some weights to put in my house, like many people had done at that time. And the thing was, I was working at an academy at the time, and so I remember looking and thinking, people are hoarding everything, and maybe they're overreacting. And then literally a couple weeks go by, and I'm like, man, I see where that's coming from. So, just kind of looking back at how life was at the beginning of the pandemic, and then, navigating, just remember what quarantine was like. I mean, obviously, you're stuck at home, so you really got to acclimate it to a lot of the Netflix shows, because all you really could do, you sit home, you watch movies, you get up, you go exercise, you go walk around maybe, and then you get on Netflix, you watch all the shows that you can. I remember Ozark was big, Money Heist was big, just binge watching them. And so, yeah, I mean, really, I think humanity's patience was tested throughout the quarantine, because people are so used to being able to interact freely with one another. Being able to go out, go get a drink, or go to occasions. Here in Houston, the rodeo was shut down. A couple of big concerts were shut down, and now people don't have the ability to live autonomously, to go out and celebrate events like they once were doing. And so, looking back at that, it's like, okay, well, how do you keep yourself entertained? How do you keep yourself, emotionally stimulated, right? For many people, because it's like you don't have your friends really to lean on, or at least, you can keep on the phone with them maybe, but, being able to see them in person, it really wasn't safe. And a lot of people, try to, navigate the risk and maybe try to congregate and things of that nature. So then you had to deal with that aspect of, well, you're putting yourself at risk of getting COVID, right? And so just, looking at that whole thing, it was a very interesting circumstance, and just seeing how, the cases spiked, and, the curve flattened, it steepened and flattened, just fluctuated. based off of the lifting of restrictions, the quarantining, seeing how people were really dealing with being in quarantine for the first time in their lives. That was one thing I thought was going to be the most interesting thing was how long was it going to take for people to start losing their patience, right? Because it's easy to say, well, this is only going to last for a couple of weeks, which is what the verbiage was in the beginning. And then a couple weeks turned into a couple months, then a couple months now. People are getting aggravated. When are we going to get back? When are we going to be able to go back to work for those who were laid off or furloughed? And it was messy. And then for people, unfortunately, who didn't, have the most pleasant experience with COVID, to put it as politically correct as I can, people who were hospitalized on ventilators, not really knowing what's going to happen with their loved ones or with themselves, even, definitely, I think it was a scary sight for people to see. And so just seeing the impact it had on families, on individuals, I think was the unfortunate part about COVID. But I think, like with anything in life, it's always good to have reflection after the fact. We're looking at March of 2021, and we're seeing sort of a new reality being formed, right? People are starting to look in, things are starting to open back up. More people now, we have a vaccine, we have multiple vaccines available. So it's a matter of, okay, what's the new norm going to look like? That's kind of the question being posed. Are people going to be able to go out and take the mask off? People going to be able to do the things that they were able to do maybe 1 year, 2 years ago? And I think, from what I've been able to perceive and just kind of the verbiage by the health professionals and just even people's natural habit forming, I think, the masks are going to be part of, at least American life. I know in Asian countries, the masks are kind of already a practice a little bit more commonly. So I think, those people, it's not too much of a transition. But I think here in masks, I think you're going to see masks become more mainstream, at least for the rest of 2021, as the uncertainty of COVID starts to lessen. And I think as more people are able to get vaccinated, and more less and less cases are starting to come down, I think people who don't want to wear the mask will feel more comfortable taking it off and going about life regularly. I think for others, people, the mask is kind of like become part of their person, part of their uniform. It's just like putting on clothes. There's just one extra layer of clothing that you put on your person when you go out and about, especially to places like the store or the gym, things of that nature. And I think that could be good. I know one thing that was talked about was, last year there really wasn't a flu season, not just because of the mask, but also because people were taking, cleanliness, hygiene, those types of things into consideration. So obviously, I think that for those who bought into the mask and the mask mandates and everything, and for those who still implement that even now, I think it's benefited them because they didn't have to deal with not only not getting COVID, but also not getting the flu, right? And for those who are not really too big of fans of the restrictions, all you have to hope for is that they at least are able to take the precautions to protect themselves and their families, because in the end, we just want everybody to be safe, right? And so I think, kind of the new normal is just people starting to wear masks a little bit more frequently. Definitely, I think hygiene has become a bigger factor in American life. And not that it really wasn't, but, with more hand sanitizer dispensers being invested in, people really taking into consideration cleaning stuff, cleaning their doorknobs, cleaning their groceries that they go out and shop for, all the little things that maybe we weren't as cognizant of before the pandemic, I think are starting to seep into people's minds a little bit more. And I think that's a good thing. Cleanliness and hygiene, definitely, you can never have too much of. But now just, looking, forward, at least, right now we're in March of 2021, and, the cases are starting to come down. The curve is coming down, and there seems to be a little bit of glimmer of light that we're about to get to the end of this. And we're not all the way out the woods yet. There's still a lot of people who still need to be vaccinated. We're still trying to get more doses in for people who want to get vaccinated, right? But the good thing I think is that at least there's variations. There are different brands. There's Pfizer, Johnson and Johnson, Moderna. And I think the most important thing is that people are at least being given options, right? Options and the ability to choose, right? And I think that's all you really can ask for, is the ability to make the decision for yourself, for your family, if you're an adult, right? If you want to get vaccinated, hey, here are the options. This is the statistics. This is what each vaccine gives. This is the dosages. Do with this information what you will, right? These are the restrictions. These are the guidelines. These are the principles. These are the recommendations. Do with this knowledge and with this information what you will, and let's try to navigate this together, and let's all try to get back to normal as best as we can. I think that's the goal for everybody. Everybody wants to go back to normal. Everybody wants to be able to go out and peacefully and freely mingle with their loved ones, go out and travel. I know a lot of people weren't able to go visit loved ones, go visit their families for the holidays. A lot of people had plans, kind of nicked, and had to stay home. And so hopefully holiday seasons this year will be a lot different than last year. Definitely, I think many people looked at 2020 as a whole, not just because of COVID, but just in general as a year that they wanted to throw away. I try not to look at life like that. I think, there's always some good that you can peel from it. I think for me, definitely, just having the appreciation for the little things in life. The fact that you are able to wake up, the fact that you are able to have a shelter, have a house, because, not everybody had that ability, especially after the winter storm too, that happened a few weeks ago here. Still being able to have water, electricity, all those little things. I think you learn not to take it for granted. I think that if there's any lesson I learned with 2020 is that, tomorrow is not promised. So make sure that you seize the most out of every opportunity that you have every day that you wake up, and, don't hold anything back. Go for what you want, and, make the most out of your life because it's yours and you only get one. But that'll wrap up this edition of For Insight. Once again, I'm your host, Mike Obi. I appreciate all of you guys, tuning in and supporting the channel. Like this, comment, subscribe, and also hit my inbox and let me know what other topics you guys want me to talk about and introduce. You can catch this episode on YouTube, Anchor, Spotify, and all platforms streaming podcasts. Much love.